Hey everybody, Collie again with the Kiowa Conservancy. Today we've got a special treat for you. We're going to be meeting up with Karl Ohlandt, the landscape ecologist out here at Spring Island Land Trust. We're going to be talking about native plants, rain gardens, how this community resembles a lot of Kiowa and a lot more. So come and join us today. Alright, so the first stop on our tour today is the Spring Island Nursery, where Karl and I are going to visit some great plants that are good for your gardens on Kiowa, and he's going to talk a little bit about why native plants are so important for you. Awesome, let's take a look. Let's just start generally with the native plant idea. Why is it so important for communities to plant native?
Very important. Native plants, first of all, can be a lot less maintenance. They're adapted to our local conditions, climate, rainfall, soil, fertility, that sort of thing. So they require a lot less water. Again, you still need to make sure you plant the right plant in the right location, but yes, they're adapted to our local conditions. So number one, it's less maintenance, and I think everyone can get on board with that. Number two, they're adapted and connected to our local wildlife. So the local bird life, for instance, is connected to the plants, certain fruit and seed producing native plants they're expecting to find here. Birds that migrate through, for instance, warbler that migrates through would expect to find the fruit of wax myrtle here and on its migration route to eat. And if that plant's not here, if it's replaced with a non-native plant, then they won't have that food source in their migration. Local insect lives, butterflies and things like that, the caterpillars are looking for certain plants to feed on. So there's that wildlife connection that's really important. And thirdly, sense of place. I think the plant life really helps us identify where we are, identify and has a connection to a place. I think is a good example. You know you're in the low country of South Carolina when you see the huge live oaks over salt marsh and Spanish moss hanging off of those and that sort of thing. So yeah, sense of place is very important. The plants help you identify the location where you are.
And when thinking about the wildlife, it's important to think about the trophic levels, and it all starts from somewhere lower down, and that's where ground cover can play a role. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. And a lot of times that can be difficult in a maritime forest kind of setting when you've got such a dense canopy, say of live oak, for instance, which is evergreen but also very broad spreading shade. So things like ferns can be really good, and sedges as far as covering. Now those aren't blooming plants, but those are also good from the standpoint that deer don't prefer those as well, so if that's an issue. Plants like lesser snakeroot, which blooms in the fall, great for butterflies, things like that to use. You can use, there's a native columbine that's great in the shade. Wild ginger is a great evergreen one that grows under the canopy of these shady oaks. And then one that's really a great ground cover that you can find under most any live oak, it seems, a partridge berry. Not only gets a bloom but gets a fruit on it, grows very low, and prefers to be under a live oak. I mean, they're like companion plants. Yes, so that's a pretty common one to find. I just always remind people, they say, I want color, and I'm always reminding folks, you know, green is a color. And there are a lot of greens, and you can see that just in the plants around us here in the nursery. Yes, you know, all the different shades of green and textures. So you can get a lot out of green without there being the color of the flower. Plus, it's still very beneficial to wildlife because the leaves are what the insects often are feeding on, and the insects are what the birds are feeding their babies with. So you want a lot of leaves, you want a lot of green in your landscape because you want the insects that are drawn to that.